Hello, everybody. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Monthly live chat time. Wherever you are joining from, drop me a line, say hi, let me know your city, your country. As I always say in these live chats, it's always interesting to see where everybody is from. For those of you joining this live chat for the first time, my name is Magna Gopal. If you don't already know me, I realize that all of my past live chats, I have not actually said my name. I haven't introduced myself. I've kind of assumed that perhaps the banner or the title or the fact that you're on my YouTube or my Facebook or my Instagram means that you already know that Magna Gopal is me and that's who's hosting today's live chat. But I realized that perhaps I should do a tiny little formal introduction out of courtesy for those of you who might be joining for the first time. Maybe you got forwarded a link or you just happened across my page, or if you're on YouTube, for example, perhaps you just randomly saw a live stream and decided to join in. So I'm Magna Gopal. For those of you who don't know me, I have had a career in salsa dancing, teaching across the world for over 20 years. I'm now going into public speaking and empowerment coaching. Much of what I do, what I talk about, including these live chats, are based on many of the lessons that I have learned through dance. Dance, I feel, is a perfect microcosm for relationships, for how we interact, for how we communicate, how we express ourselves, and how we ultimately develop into the best versions of ourselves, I think. And so all of these lessons that I have learned, I'm here to share them with you. And hopefully in one way or another, they benefit you too. Hi, Farnik. Let me know where you're from. Pranshu from Mumbai. Ezra from Jersey City. Oh, my old stomping grounds. Yep. Kolkata, Abhik, hello. So these monthly live chats are done across four platforms, my bad. Facebook, on my Facebook profile, on my page, on YouTube, as well as on Instagram. So if you see me looking side to side, it's not because I'm being distracted by anything else. I am 100% here with you the entire time, but I am on multiple devices, so that's why. So these monthly live chats, we are on number 25, 2 years plus of these lives. And when I first started them, the focus was always kind of dance related, dance specific. And many of the people who I have worked with as students and coaching, everything, have often asked, like, especially when it comes to dance, why and how do you do what you do? Like, how do you have so much fun? How do you bring out the craziness and the little kid in other people? Why are you so easy to communicate with? Why do you get along so well with everybody? Why do you teach the way you teach? All of these things are a result of my mindset. So yes, there's technique involved in being able to execute these things. Sure, there's a lot of practice that goes into it through repetition of doing the same things and improving upon them over the years. But ultimately, it's a matter of how we think about our lives, how we think about expressing ourselves, how we think about connection, how we think about our relationships with other people that determines how we show up. And so these live chats, the topics that we cover in these live chats are for that purpose of trying to better understand ourselves and understand our relationships with others so that we can grow as individuals, so we can help other people grow, and so we can build a better community ultimately. Ihan in the house. Merhaba, watching full screen again. Perfect hack, by the way. He had sent me a screenshot, I think, of my last live chat, a picture of what I thought was a TV, but he's got a projector. So for those of you with small spaces who don't have the space for a dedicated TV, but want a big screen to watch things on, projectors, and they're actually cheaper, really large TVs, and you can make them even bigger if you want, so there's that element too. Let me know again where you're from, and also just give me a quick feedback on, does it sound clear? Because I am in another setup. I'm always trying a new setup for these live chats because maybe I get bored with the same thing and I'm trying something new. And then, of course, it's kind of like a nice day outside. Well, cloudy, decent day outside, but the lighting in my kitchen is much nicer than my living room, which feels like I'm in a bit of a dungeon. And sometimes I think someone once told me, you look like you're in prison, like you're under an interrogation or something like that. So I'm trying to brighten it up for you guys here. All right. We got Wade from New York, one of the people who reminded me that I never say my name in the beginning of my live chats. Jesus from Puerto Rico. Oh my God, Jesus. Wow. Okay, so before I get into today's topic, Jesus from Puerto Rico. Man, I am so sad that we did not get to reconvene and meet again and have a full proper dance. So there's this guy, Jesus, who I had danced with for the first time ever, never met him before this moment, was in 2007 in Orlando at the Orlando Congress, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, he's a big guy. He is very noticeable, but he also has one arm. And he had asked me to dance, and I, of course, said sure, because for me, of course, it would be easier with two arms, but why not see what someone can actually do? And also, again, test to myself, if I'm as good of a follower as I think I am, can I follow somebody with just a one-armed lead? We had an epic first dance, just epic, which goes back to one of the recent posts that I made where I was dancing with this other phenomenal dancer, Jonathan from Italy. And our first dance was just really, really connected and musical and playful and all of those good things that you want in a dance, in any dance. First dance is 10th dance, 100th dance, right? And I explained in that post that it's all about your attitude. Like, how are you approaching the connection with another person? That is really ultimately going to depend how you connect and how deep that connection can be. And so with Jesus, we had this great dance, and then I never saw him again. And 2 weekends ago, I was in Puerto Rico for the Dia de Salsa festival that they have once a year with all these bands in a huge stadium. And I saw him, and I was like, God, that guy looks really familiar. I mean, Jesus, you got more gray hair, but then again, so do I. And I was like, God, that looks familiar. And then I saw the one arm. And I thought, nah, there can't be another person that looks kind of the same and dances amazing like this. And we started our dance, and it was a good song, and it was beautiful. The day was sunny. It was gorgeous. The vibe was amazing. We started our dance, and unfortunately, he got a cramp in his foot. And the funniest thing about this moment was that he got a cramp and he kind of did this pose like he was in a lunge. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, cool. Yeah, I see you. I hear that interpretation. I could play with that. So I started copying him and kind of like doing a lunge on this side and doing a lunge on that side and playing around. And then he didn't move. And so I was like, are you okay? And he said that he had a cramp in his foot. I can't remember the Spanish term for it, but he kept saying something, and I thought he was saying hungry. Calambra, I think. Anyone who speaks Spanish in here, please feel free to correct me because I'm often wrong with those things. And Calambra, I can't remember. Anyways, whatever. He had this cramp in his foot, and so he had to sit down and couldn't dance for that moment. It was probably the heat and dehydration and all that stuff. So some people could say, oh, I've danced with Magna, I got my dance with her, whatever. But I basically massaged his calf for the rest of the song. So that is a special privilege for you only, Jesus. Anyways, great story, great experience. I hope that we get a chance to meet again and have another dance, because you really are phenomenal, and you're a perfect example of showing people that, like, the limitations that we have or that we think we have are really just what we think we have. They're in our minds, because you are easily one of the softest leads, very clear with your lead, musical, fun, connected, just a joy to dance with. So anyone who knows him, who is in Puerto Rico, make sure you dance with him. If you ever see him out, trust me, it'll be one of the best dances of the night for you. Ihan said, I have the space for a TV, but a whole wall is better. Touche. I agree. I hear you. All right. So anyone else who's in the house, don't forget to tell me where you're from. Again, my favorite part about the live chat, your favorite part might be listening to whatever, insights I have. My favorite part is knowing where is everyone from. So if you are joining right now, shoot me a message in the comments of where you're from. James is in the house from California. California, right? Yeah. Calambre, that's it. That's what I meant. So I kept thinking, he kept saying calambre, calambre, and I was like, hambre? You're hungry? So, I mean, okay, I understand. That's a good enough reason to stop dancing, especially if you're really, really hungry. But I didn't understand initially, but I realized that he was in pain. And so I did my best to alleviate that pain. Hola, Neto. Calambre. Another person's correcting me. Thank you, Emmanuel. From Puebla, Mexico. Cool. Very, very cool. Chris from Munich. Hi, Chris. Awesome. So, our live chats. Today's live chat is all about feedback. And I'm curious. So you can leave it in a comment, answer these questions. Have you ever given feedback that wasn't received well? Like you offered somebody something constructive perhaps, and that person dismissed it or got defensive or something like that. And on the flip side of that, have you ever received feedback poorly? And if you have received feedback poorly, why? Like, what was it about that feedback that made you receive it that way? Or what was it about yourself that made you accept it or consume it in that way that it was received poorly? Okay, I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are on this. And I'll just explain while you guys are hopefully writing your answers into the chat here. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because for me, feedback is a fundamental element to our growth. Not just our growth, but other people's growth, the growth of the community in general. Feedback is a fundamental element to that. And unfortunately, as well-intentioned as we can be, sometimes we don't deliver it in the best way. So today's purpose of today's live chat is to understand, as I called it, the 5 W's and the H, right? So the who, the why, the what, the when, the where, the how, so that we can best deliver feedback and we can receive it in the best way possible. Because if you are not giving feedback, there's a level of contribution that you are robbing people, your friends, your relationships, your businesses, your communities of. And if you are not taking in feedback or you're closed off to feedback, then you're robbing yourself of that growth. Okay. As much as we know, as much as we train, as much as we learn, as much as we study, there's a limit. Okay, because we are always coming at it with our own filters, with our own views, with our own perspectives, our own experiences, and our own insecurities as well, right? And so we have our own limitations to the way we process information. You could give me everything in the world, and I'm still going to process it just in the way that I can process it. And that's based on my own experiences. So what feedback provides is this outside perspective, right? When you get that feedback on whatever it is that you're learning or trying to develop or become better at, including being a better human being, period, you are opening yourself up to that other perspective, that external perspective. And it's most likely something you didn't think of. Why? Because it's not your perspective. It's not where you would naturally come from. Okay. James said, oh yeah. Oh, especially at work. Oops. Oh, Instagram, I always get this challenge with Instagram where I like try to scroll and I just almost close it all out. So for you guys who are in the chat right now, folks, have you ever given feedback that wasn't well received when you were the person giving? And have you ever received it poorly? If so, why? Okay. Feedback. What is feedback first? Let's talk about that, right? It is full information, right? Something constructive criticism that's given to somebody to say what they can do to improve themselves, improve their performance, improve their communication, improve their relationship, improve a product or a service. It's all about improvement. Okay. And there's difference between actual feedback, so feedback based on that definition, and feedback or other things that pass as feedback or that we think are feedback, right? And that includes purely negative criticism, right? Just things that are there to demolish you, destroy your spirit, discourage you from doing anything or being yourself. And then there's also kind of empty praise, right? Where you just get a pat on the back for walking, like, oh, great. Yeah, everyone's walking. I mean, I get the pat on the back. If you were in a wheelchair and you've been struggling with that, you're trying to get back into walking. Yes, that's a pat on the back because you're working at something. But just generally getting a pat on the back for walking, that's empty praise, right? Empty praise is things like, you're amazing. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. But why? What about what I did or what I said or who I am is amazing, right? And same thing with negative criticism. It's just pure negativity. There's things like, I hated this. Okay, that's all right. It's fine for you to have your opinion on it, but why did you hate it? Right? Like sharing that extra step of why. What is it specifically allows us to take that information and do something with it. Otherwise, it's either just a stroke of the ego or it's like a knife in the back or a knife through the heart, right? It's not serving any purpose for us to grow. Okay. So let me see if anybody wrote anything. Oh, you guys are not highly participating today, eh? All right. There are some topics that you guys just go all in. Let me see what is happening here. Also, I forget. There is a lag between the time that I ask a question and the time I expect the answer, which is usually immediate. But then by the time you guys get the question and the time you have to take to reply to it, sorry, my bad. So Abik said, a beginner follow constantly was telling me that my turns were doing it in the leader's timing. She insisted I was wrong as she was giving feedback based on her footwork. Oh, that is a very common one. So let me actually give you guys a couple of examples of the kind of things that I've had to deal with and encounter and things that I've also done myself. So in dance, I've often gotten, again, I'm saying this is as part of the whole general topic of feedback, but some of this is really not feedback at all, right? I should dance more feminine. Oftentimes, no idea what the fuck that means, because what do you mean feminine? Is the fact that I am a woman on the dance floor, identifying as a woman not feminine enough for you, right? I've gotten appearance, right? Saying I should dress more feminine. And that has also been really confusing to me because even the person who said this to me, I remember replying and being really confused. I'm like, I'm sorry. I had every intention of walking into a woman's clothing store and buying these clothes. I had no idea I ended up in a men's store. That this blouse is actually a men's blouse, and these jeans and these pants are men's pants, and these shoes are men's shoes, right? Like I had to express that because I'm like, what exactly are you talking about, right? Performances. When I was performing quite often, I would always get these suggestions of, oh, you should add more of this. You should add more spins. Oh, you should travel more across the stage, or you should just focus on this specific aspect of your dancing and highlight just that. Okay? Teaching. In the very, very beginning, I remember one person who used to conduct his classes a certain way was like, oh, you talk a lot about the technique and the mindset, and really people just want to learn sequences, and you should just focus on teaching sequences and, patterns and whatnot. With friendships and relationships and all of this feedback, right, that I'm telling you right now, these are unsolicited situations, right? And there's a difference. So in feedback, you have a giver and a receiver, right? With any communication, there's a giver and a receiver. And as it pertains to feedback, there's your unsolicited and your solicited feedback. So unsolicited is someone just randomly offering you their opinion or what you should do. And then solicited feedback that you've actually, which I'll go in a minute. So relationships, right? Unsolicited feedback, telling someone that they're always late, right? You're always late. That is feedback in a way because it is actionable, right? But not completely actionable because it doesn't say specifically why. That's a problem, and how could it be improved. Vivitor, where are you from, Vivitor? He said, big fan since a long time. Thank you for your energy and creativity. My question is about what is the best compliment I've received on the dance floor? On the dance floor itself, I think the best compliments have been unspoken. The smile and the laughs, that's the best compliment for me. And at the end of a dance, the hug that I get to share with somebody, that's the best compliment. That just tells me everything that words probably could not express accurately enough. So solicited feedback. And now this is another reason why I came to this topic. As many of you know, I have a feedback form. If you've taken classes with me, workshops with me, anything, private coaching, I'm always requesting feedback, right? The reason I'm requesting feedback is because I hope these earrings are not bothering you guys on Instagram. I can hear it on my wire here, but hopefully it's not. Let me know if it is. I can take them off. So solicited feedback is where someone's actually asking for that feedback. So in my feedback forms, I have multiple questions because why? I would like to gauge your experience. Do I want just a pat on the back? It would be lovely if you're telling me, hey, Magna, like I just got this here, right? Thank you for your energy and your creativity. That is a beautiful thing to say, and I appreciate that, right? I definitely appreciate the praise and the pat on the back for like, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing. But what I would appreciate even more is tell me what is it that I'm doing. Let's say, thank you for these live chats. It's really great to interact. Okay, fantastic. What about these live chats do you like? Do you like the structure of it? Do you like the specific topics? Is there a certain way that I'm approaching it or that I'm speaking that helps you understand better or helps you connect better or always make sure that you take a lesson away? Right? That's something that I'm requesting. So I always appreciate everything that I get and every interaction from all of you, be that positive, extremely flowery praise, or even negative stuff, right? I appreciate you watching, taking the time out of your busy day to be negative, right? I'm gonna own that and say that's a compliment because you felt something strong enough about me that you had to interact. Okay, so even my critics and my haters out there, thank you. But yeah, when it comes to the feedback with these forms, I remember one of the forms that I got a response to talked about the feedback as being too long. Now, for those of you joining for the first time, these live chat sessions can go anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes, right? I used to try and keep it more concise, but at the end of the day, these are the things that I want to talk about. If you can only join for a certain amount of time, that's okay. If you want to watch the replay, it's going to be available for you, but there are a bunch of points that I want to cover before I end my live chat. And this is my time that I'm spending, my free time that I'm spending to share this knowledge. So if it's too long, that's kind of a feedback, but it's not specific enough to be actionable, right? And that was always a problem. So with that kind of feedback, I don't know how much is too long. Is 90 minutes too long? Clearly, because that's the live chat that you stuck around for. But is 60 minutes too long? Is 45 minutes too long? Right? So if you are providing that kind of feedback to anybody, especially when it comes to forms or solicited feedback, like someone's asking you something, same thing with a dance, right? I have gotten that on the dance floor too, where someone's like, oh, this is too rough, right? Or I've even said that to somebody. But what does that mean, right? Rough could be many things. Rough could be the fingers squeezing in. Rough could be a jerking of the body, a jerking of the arm, right? There are many ways that someone could be rough. And you providing a feedback that's general and vague and nondescript and non-specific does not guarantee that you're going to get anything back, because I'm going to get something like it's too long, and hate to say it, as much as I appreciate you completing the form, I'm not going to change anything about the duration of the thing because I don't know what that means, right? I would rather receive it's too long, it would be great if this was 30 minutes, and then I could respond to that and say, fantastic. If you prefer that it's a shorter period, or you want to just focus on certain things, you can always tune into the replay or go on my YouTube channel, and there are many videos and even extracts from these live chats that are about 5 minutes in length. There are even reels and shorts that are less than a minute long, right? So I can provide you with something that would appeal to what it is that you're looking for, but I don't know what that means by saying too long, right? Student forums, and then I'm going to go into the comments here. Student forums is another place that I've often not gotten the most detailed feedback, right? I always give my students and my coaching clients feedback forms rather. And in those feedback forms, I would get, oh yeah, I learned how to spot, let's say my Mastery of Multiples program right now, we have weekly review forms. And they would say, oh, I understand spotting now. But what do you understand about it, right? What was different about what you knew before to what you know now? And why is that important to me? Of course, I would like to know how you're progressing through the program and that you are progressing in general, but that's not enough for me as a teacher, because as a teacher, I am here to give you the most. And the more you provide me, the more details you provide me about your experience, your questions, your thought process, as well as the changes in your thought process, the better I can understand you so I can give you more, right? And if you are a coaching client, if you have a coach, a mentor, or a teacher, and they ask you to answer questions about what you're learning, go into detail, because why are you even completing the form in the first place? Is it for me? I hope not. It should be for you. Understanding that the more details you provide to that person that is mentoring you, the more they will understand you and be able to guide you along your journey, which is ultimately why you signed up for a class in the first place, why you paid for a lesson, why you paid for coaching, why you paid for a product even, right? Like, think about all the products that we get out there, right? Services, apps, anything, appliances, whatever it is, right? Think about all those things. And when we provide even restaurants, right? Like, let's say we go to a restaurant, we really enjoy the food. What did you like about it? Right? This dish was really flavorful. The service was amazing, right? But so many people are like, love this spot. Why? Right? Share a little bit more. We're going to go into that in a moment. So let me just read a couple of comments here. And again, if you are joining for the first time, please leave a note where you're from. Lourdes in the house from Florida. Was running late, but I'm here. Oh, thank you. James said, from my experience, I've learned to also try to probe for more specific details on feedback. Sometimes it helps the person take a moment to think about the details better. How the question is formed initially usually produces different responses based on wording, vernacular, and intent. Absolutely. Great point. I'm going to go into that as well. So Helen here from Spain. Cool. That reminds me of the show Community that I just got one of my friends hooked on. And one of the characters, Ahmed, he's always like, cool. Eric in the house too. Hi, Eric. No buzz to you. Fantastic. Vivi Thor, glad you like it. And from France. Very cool. Awesome. So I just dropped in a couple of like the different categories that we have, but let's think about giving feedback. Like, who do we usually give feedback to, right? If you have some ideas or people that you often give feedback to, you can throw it into chat. But friends, right? Relationships, romantic relationships, maybe family members too, colleagues, people we work with, hierarchical relationships, so managers, employees, bosses, employees, teachers, students, acquaintances. Maybe, most likely, we don't really give that much feedback to random people, right? Businesses, products, services, just as I mentioned, or restaurants, things like that. And then there's always those anonymous kind of social post comments, right? Which is another thing. So why do we give feedback? All right, this is another part that I think I just touched upon, but which is really important is, for me personally, I feel like there are 3 reasons to give good feedback. Okay. One is to improve the other person, right? Which most of us, when I posed this question last week on social media, I got a lot of answers that were like, oh, why do you give feedback? What's your motivation to give feedback? Right. And most people were saying, to help somebody or grow. I learned all of these things. I want to help somebody get there too. So for someone else's growth, right? That in general benefits the community as a whole, right? If you provide feedback to a student, for example, let's go back to dance. If you provide feedback to a student about how to improve their dancing, they improve individually, but now they're on the dance floor being a better dancer with everybody else that they're interacting with, right? So the community gets to benefit. And then there's one more element of it, which is personal and selfish. Okay. And I use the term selfish not with any negative connotation attached to it at all. When we give feedback, we sometimes don't acknowledge the real reason inside that we're giving that feedback, even if it is to somebody that we know, right? Like, let's say that someone's always late and you say, hey, you know what, you're always late. It'd be great if you could be more on time. Like 5 minutes late is okay, but you're constantly like 30 minutes late for every meeting that we have or every call that we have, right? Feedback. But yes, it'll improve this person's punctuality, but does this person actually care about their punctuality? In reality, us expressing something to somebody else when it comes to feedback is, again, from our perspective and our lens, right? And our experiences and what we want to experience, what we want to experience more of, and what we want to experience less of, right? So that's unsolicited, me telling somebody that they're always late. If you're a close friend of mine and you're one of those people who's always late, I will let you know. All right. And I will explain why it's a problem. But what's my reason to make you more on time? Sure. But what's the real reason? It's to benefit me, actually, right? Because I want to improve that experience with you. And this is frustrating for me. And it affects and impacts the way our relationship progresses because I don't feel like you respect time and you respect my time, right? And you respect the time that we share together. So there's a huge element of giving good feedback that is actually a benefit to the person giving the feedback. The better your feedback, and this I really encourage everyone to listen to closely, okay? Because we're always in a position to give feedback, and oftentimes we are saying things and suggesting things for other people to improve without even realizing that we're doing it. So we are, in essence, kind of giving feedback and room for growth, right? Providing opportunities for this person to absorb that information, use that information, and improve as a person. So if you think just of the other person, maybe you are careless in what you say, right? Or maybe you don't put that much effort. But if you had to think about yourself instead and think, how can I, why am I giving this feedback to this person? Let's go into even student-teacher relationships, right? Why am I giving feedback to the student? If I give good feedback, clear, concise feedback to this student, they will improve and they will be able to advance. They will not be holding my class back. They will be able to contribute by being a good example to other students in the class. So now I can use them as a reference instead of constantly breaking things down myself, right? There's a lot of benefit to me. And if I can see that relationship too, it makes it easier and more desirable for me to go into detail and be as constructive as possible. Same thing with a restaurant. Let's say you eat somebody at a restaurant, and you love the food and you love the service. Telling them, hey, love this place. Really, can't wait to be back. great. I'm sure, giving them a 5-star rating, they are appreciative of that, right? That definitely helps their business. But does it help your relationship with that service provider? Probably not as much. Like, it's good that you're sharing a positive review. It does help their business. It does help them grow in that way. But if you actually share the things that you like in more detail, you could say, I love the service. Your staff is friendly. They're really kind. They remembered my name. Now the restaurant understands they liked our place for these reasons. Let's make sure we work on those things. Let's make sure our customer service is solid. Or maybe someone's like, oh, really love this restaurant because of this very homey vibe, right? Maybe it's like in a house kind of setting, a big house or something, right? So you feel like you're not in an establishment, like some corporate establishment, but you're in someone's home, and you express those things. Maybe this restaurant's thinking, oh, we really should modernize our space, right? So you get left a review saying, wow, loved your restaurant, and that's it. And so they're feeling very confident about whatever decision they make, right? And as far as to talk to James about, getting more clarity on the feedback, yes, we can. But most of the time, we're not going to have that time to. So why double the effort, right? Why not just make that first step solid if you're giving feedback? So that restaurant who wants to modernize now, thinking, oh, people, we getting all these great reviews, they want to modernize, they change up their whole space, and now they look like every other restaurant, and now they're not getting that much clientele. Why? Because it was a homey vibe. But everyone just said, amazing, 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 really generic, and never told them that it was that homey vibe that made it so special. And so they changed that one element that was really crucial to their success, right? So in that sense, again, your benefit, what do you benefit from that? Well, you get that homey vibe. If you encourage that, if you say something that's positive and you let these people know, but you also say exactly what it is, you're going to get more of that, right? Same thing with telling someone you don't like something. I really didn't like the fact that the aircon was so freezing cold every time I come in there, and it's the middle of summer. I'm wearing summer clothes, and I come inside here and I realize I need a winter jacket. Like, it might sound like or harsh or whatever, but that's pretty constructive actually. Because now this person, this establishment, maybe they have the aircon as high because their staff is running around back and forth and they're hot, but they don't think about the customers that it's not as comfortable. And now that they know this, maybe they make some adjustments. And now what do you get? You get a more pleasant experience from the place you already like. You get a better service and a better memory of that moment, right? So there's a benefit to you to give good feedback. Same thing with the person, again, the person who had said in the feedback form about the live chat that it's too long, right? Sure, I could go and ask for more information, but this is the first time I'm hearing that specifically, right? Haven't really heard that from anybody else, and haven't heard any details, right? So for me, I don't intend to make these live chats 15 minutes. I have other content that's like that, right? That this live chat is a deep dive. And so it's going to go on as long as it goes on. Sorry, right? And again, you always have an option as a viewer to log out, come back later, watch the replay, sign in 30 minutes into the live chat. That is your choice, right? And this is mine that I'm providing, and it's a free service. So, I have a little bit more leeway in what I'm doing with it. Of course, I'd like to improve, and which is why I have a live chat feedback form, is how can I improve it, right? But I'm not necessarily going to go and be like to everything that's vague and say, hey, what are you saying here, right? Because it's extra steps. And again, we want to assume that everyone's got their lives and they're busy with their lives, attending to a multitude of things. So if you want the maximum out of an interaction, try to bring your best to it. So reading a couple of comments real quick. Gabby Salsa Club from Argentina. Jerry Mambo, not sure where you're from, but sending you love back. Again, if you're joining, shoot a message where you are joining from. Luz in the house. Just in what we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. Chris said, recently gave a workshop in salsa musicality, rhythmic concepts, and instrumentation. At the end, I asked for feedback and only got positive yet unspecific comments, although I knew I kind of messed up in terms of structure and depth. Now I'm stuck with the same problems I had before, pondering about the changes for the next one. Sometimes students are just too overwhelmed, I guess. Yeah, you know, and this is, again, students, for my students, right? It's not just a teacher. It's the hierarchy does not mean that feedback only goes teacher to student to improve. Students, you can contribute to teachers, just like we can contribute to a service provider. They are a provider of service, right? A service of learning, and you can contribute to that learning experience. So for all my students, and taking your workshops, your classes, when you say something to a student, obviously you're with that teacher, obviously you're attending that workshop because you like this instructor and you intend to maintain your loyalty and keep on learning from them because you're getting so much. But when you get an opportunity to contribute that feedback back to them, what exactly are you saying? Try to be specific, because we as instructors, right, are always adapting. We're always trying to find new ways to teach, new ways to communicate, new content to develop and to work on. And if we don't have that feedback from you that's actually constructive and actionable, we might change something that is really important to you, that was really useful to you. But because you never mentioned it, we didn't know, and we changed things, right? And that is actually a perfect example. Chris, thank you for sharing that. James, that this would be a different moment, right? Let's say a student-teacher relationship, especially in a workshop situation where, in your regular classes, you have the same students coming back and forth, so you can see them on a regular basis. But in a workshop situation, you might have 200 people in a class that you have no idea who they are, right? Hey, how'd you like the workshop? Oh yeah, it was great, thank you so much. Right? You're not going to be able to follow up with everybody, right? This is why I'm going back to the importance of this particular topic, and the importance of feedback is we are all in a position, we are often solicited even for feedback, right? How did you like this, right? And those moments that we look at that as like we almost don't honor the privilege that we have of providing real, valuable, actionable input. We don't honor that, right? And that's our privilege, and we should feel honored to have that. But we don't honor it because we dismiss its importance almost. And we think that saying amazing is going to be great because, hey, I patted them on the back. But in reality, it's not as constructive, as contributing to the growth of something. And it's definitely not going to guarantee that you get more of what you want because you haven't expressed it, right? Jason said, also consider other customers, not just yourself, especially with complaints. Oh yeah, even with complaints as it pertains to restaurants and stuff, right? Like same thing, like whatever your good feedback or negative constructive feedback is, right? The more detailed you are, the more you are going to be able to understand, one, what the relationship is between you and this person, the importance of that relationship between you and this person, or a service, or provider, or whatever, and like what you can get, what you will get out of it, and what you should invest into it, right? Let me just touch upon that really quickly. If I'm giving feedback and I'm taking the time to provide detailed feedback to somebody that is constructive, that is delivered well, and that person disregards it, then I realize that maybe they don't take what I have to say with that much importance, right? Like I might say something to my student and I might say something to another dancer. My student will most likely say, oh, yeah, okay, let me think about that. Oh, that's a good tip. I'm going to try and work on that. But if I said that to a random dancer, that random dancer would be like, and like, you're not my instructor. I've never learned from you. I don't know what you're talking about, especially if they don't even know who I am, right? They might be like, who's this random person telling me what to do and change the way I'm dancing, right? So it depends, the relationship. So if that person, however, does accept that feedback, maybe I understand that perhaps they are either seeing me in a different light with some authority or knowledge as a source of information and knowledge, or they are really good at receiving feedback and applying feedback, which is also another element, because someone who's like that is somebody who I would actually want to interact with and be friends with, because that's an important element of growth. right? Wade just said, I've been wondering about the best way to ask if the person wants my feedback. Sometimes I don't read the signals that show interest from them. That is an excellent question, or excellent thought to have. So when we are, there are always different ways to provide unsolicited feedback. One of those ways is to request, right? You can always ask someone like, hey, and it's the timing. There's an element of timing here too, right? It's not to say, like, let's say somebody does a performance, and you have some valuable constructive feedback to provide them. First things is you got to understand your relationship with this person, right? Is who are they to you and who are you to them? Doesn't matter that you're going to go and say, hey, listen, I have some feedback for you if you want to improve your, like, if there's no real relationship, that's kind of almost a waste, because this person might say, sure, yeah, tell me what you want, but they've already closed off their mind to whatever you're going to say, right? Because of the nature of the relationship and the depth of the relationship. Then there is the why. Why do you want to do this, right? And that's the part where we're assessing, well, what is it? What is my purpose? Like, do I like the way this person dances? And I think that they could be even better if they did certain things that would still honor and their personal, authentic expression? Or do I just want to see more of the same things out there, and I want this person to dance like everybody else? Because if it's the latter, I would just keep my mouth shut and have that thought in my own head, right? That's not necessarily going to contribute to anything else. There's something you want that somebody does not provide, and that is actually what they're providing is uniquely different, and they intend to be that. Then you saying any type of feedback that says, oh, you should be more like this, is not helpful and is most likely going to be disregarded as a result, right? It's like going to a restaurant that is vegan and saying, oh, I can't believe you guys don't have like beef burgers here. Well, it's a vegan place. Like, you want a beef burger, go somewhere else, right? Don't complain about this food not having meat in it when there are many other options for you, right? There's that context too, right? So why are you even saying anything in that situation? You already know what they're doing. You already know what their goal is. And that's that element of that relationship too. Do you even know what that person is looking to do with whatever it is that they're doing, right? And if you understand this person is trying to improve their dancing and wants to look more technically precise, or their spins, they want to be clean with their spins and they're not being clean, and you see that and you have a good relationship with them, then it's a matter of, okay, maybe I can offer this information, which takes us to when and where, right? Timing. And that is often a result of asking some questions. If you want the information, just as James said, like, if we want to go more and delve more into the feedback, one, of course, ask the right questions. But if you want to get more specific on something that you've received or heard, then you can actually ask something that's even more specific to elaborate, to get that person to elaborate on whatever it is that they said. So one thing you could do, Wade, is to say, hey, I love what you're doing. I love how you're growing with all of this. I love how you are expressing yourself. I can see so much improvement over all of this time, right? Which is all true. This is not fluff. It should be all true. And then say, I think if you're interested, I have an idea for how you could continue to improve this, right? Let me know if you want to hear it. Keep that open. Don't make it seem like, do you want to hear what I have to say? Because that feels really pressured, and maybe they don't, or maybe they don't right now. But if you say, open it up and say, hey, I've got something that I think would really benefit you. Let me know if you want to hear it. I'd be glad to share it. That opens the door to them saying, yes, I would. Maybe not right now, maybe later. And actually going into that timing element, right? The when and the where. A friend of mine talked about performances, right? After performances, there are a lot of people who are seeking feedback. And it's that, again, that timing of when are you even looking for feedback, and when are you asking, and are you expecting to receive true constructive feedback, or do you just want some platitudes, right? And a pat on the back? Because after a performance, even if you have a great show, right? Like, let's say you perform going into dance. So let's say you do this amazing presentation, amazing performance, amazing show. or even workshop, right? You finish that. And after that workshop or after that show, you go to your fellow artists or fellow dancers or fellow colleagues and you're like, hey, how did I do? You're riding a high after that moment, most likely, especially after a performance, a show, presentation, a speech, something like that, right? You're riding on a high at that moment. If the person that you are speaking to cares about you, okay, and wants to be constructive, they will most likely not give you the detailed constructive feedback in that moment. Because why would they rip you down from that high that you're on? You should be allowed to enjoy that. You just accomplished something. You just set out to do something and you did it, right? That deserves a pat on the back. So how do you approach that if you were being asked after a show? Lie? No. You could say something about something positive that you saw there. I'm glad you got up on stage and did that. That's positive, right? And if you want to add more detailed, constructive feedback for their improvement, then you could say, I'd love to talk to you more about it. Let's talk like next week, and I could give you some more details about like exactly what I observed or what I think you could work on. Right. This way, you are connected to that person. You're respecting that they have opened themselves up to you. You are not lying in that place, and you are opening the door for a more timely, detailed feedback. Right. Answers your question, Wade. If it doesn't, feel free to follow up and I'll be glad to answer that. Okay, so next point is the what and the how, right? So we have been talking a lot about the content of what we're saying as being detailed, which is important, of course. What we're actually saying is often going to determine what is actionable, right? Words like amazing, that's fantastic. But being specific in the content of what we're including in our feedback is more likely going to elicit a kind of response that we want or some kind of change or growth in the other person. The how is also really, really important. And this part, it kind of depends on that, like solicited versus unsolicited. Usually when it's solicited and someone asks us about feedback, we have a tendency to kind of approach it with a more constructive fashion. So our delivery, right, our tone, the wording, the kindness, the respect is all there. When it's unsolicited, like when we just instinctively feel something, we want to say something, or we're bothered by something, or we like something, that's usually where our delivery might not be as constructive, right? Different ways to say it, like I'll give you an example. I had not a fallout with a friend, but there was an expectation from this friend for me to do certain things. And I had already said that I was not available all the time on these specific scheduled dates. And I had to cancel actually a couple of those dates in a row. And this person was like, you are inconsistent and I don't feel supported. And, you're being selfish with your own schedule over everything. Like there's some feedback in there, right? It could have been delivered differently. So the how was not great. The timing of that feedback, actually, and this is kind of a reverse situation, the timing of that feedback came at the wrong time because this person was in a reactive emotional state. They did not have time to think about, oh, actually, she's been there for all of them, but she has conflicts in her schedule right now. And I remember her telling me that she would not always be available on this date, at this time, because it was not a convenient time. But she didn't want me to change everything for her, which is not being selfish, right? Didn't want me to accommodate or change everything for her schedule to fit her schedule. And so she is advising me in advance, not just canceling last minute, but in advance that these are dates that I will not be able to make. Right? If this person had taken the time to think about that and process that, most likely they would have still come out and said, listen, your absence makes me feel unsupported. However, they wouldn't have come out attacking. right? And saying, you've been inconsistent. Well, really, actually, I've been quite consistent in my communication and my availability, right? I have been open about that. So there's that accusatory kind of tone in the way we deliver feedback sometimes. The constructive way of delivering feedback is ultimately that kind of cushioned approach, right? Where you pad your feedback with something positive, you include whatever is constructive in between that somebody needs to work on, things that are challenging, room for improvement, and then you pad it again with something positive so that you leave on a good note, right? That is ultimately one of the best ways to provide feedback, unless you're in a form. Even feedback forms, right? Feedback forms are rarely tell me how to improve. Feedback forms are what did you like? Right? What specifically did you enjoy? What did you learn? How could this improve? And then finally, another question, would you return? Right? Is there, would you recommend this service or this class to somebody else? Right? So feedback forms are even designed to allow you to go through that padded approach of liked, why, didn't like, why, overall liked, right? So these are basically the giving side of things when it comes to giving feedback. What we need to do is gauge our relationship with that person. That is partially how we feel towards them, but also how they feel towards us, and whether they view us with enough importance to, one, be open to hearing our feedback, two, to accept it, and three, to implement it. Okay. The relevance of our feedback in that moment also depends on us when we're giving it. Like, is this the moment? Is this the right timing? Is this the right context? And we need to ask ourselves, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to help that person? Am I doing this for myself? And there's no right or wrong in that, but it's important for us to know why, right? The contribution element of it is what I'm going to say going to contribute to this person's growth, right? Is it going to contribute to growth in some way? Maybe not right now, but maybe down the line. And how can I frame what I'm saying, as well as the timing of when and where I'm saying it, to maximize the most positive and constructive delivery of what I want to say, right? So that this person it can be the most receptive possible to what I want to bring to the table. Any comments on giving feedback? I'm going to go really quickly into receiving feedback, which is another element of it, and equally, if not more important, I think. But that's generally things that I found when it came to giving feedback that was really important. And it's through my own experiences and through feedback forms and through just kind of solicited and unsolicited feedback that I've gotten, workshops, shows, on the dance floor, from other dancers, from friends, from relationships, from families. The way I would receive them would often depend on many of these elements, right? Of who the person is, when, why are they even saying something, when and where are they saying what they're saying, what exactly are they saying, and how are they saying that to me. So moving on then to receptivity, right? Like, we've talked about the giving side of feedback and the importance of that and how to improve upon it. Oh, and I have a comment. James said, giving feedback can also offer an opportunity to reinforce your own slate of knowledge, a huge benefit for personal growth. Yeah, absolutely. I remember you mentioning that in a DM message, about when you're providing feedback, like, it kind of allows you to see how much you know about a situation as well. So it does reinforce what you know. And in the process of giving feedback, perhaps now another change of perspective, depending on how it's received, for you to learn more as a giver, right? But in terms of receiving feedback, receptivity to feedback is similar, has a similar characteristics of the what, the why, the when, the where, the content of what you're hearing and how you're hearing it, right? So when we're receiving feedback, like, we have to also analyze the relationship with the person, Who are we receiving feedback from? And there are certain people from whom we receive feedback that we have higher or lower receptivity to, right? So people who are professionals, most likely we receive that pretty easily, right? We have high receptivity to that. So if you're a student and you're receiving feedback from your teacher, you're usually like, tell me more, right? I'm a sponge because you are someone who I trust as an authority figure in this realm, right? In this area of expertise. Same thing from an employer, right? Like if you've got a boss or something and they're giving you feedback, most likely you will receive it with a little bit more acceptance, a more openness. We have a lot of close relationships too, right? Our friends, romantic relationships, family, other people that are like in our closer circle. And from those people, we have high receptivity in terms of kind of being open to it, but not always necessarily accepting and implementing it because we don't always know or trust or understand their level of expertise in the situation, right? And so how you receive that level of acceptance and openness is going to be determined by the relationships that you have. Then you have people who are your acquaintances, right? Like people that you meet on the street or on the dance floor, even as Chris had mentioned about somebody or no, not Chris, Abhishek, who mentioned, on the dance floor, someone just randomly telling you what to do, right? This is an acquaintance. This is not somebody that you know personally. This is not someone that you even trust that they care about you, right? You just know them as an individual that you're interacting with. And that receptivity varies. Again, often depends on what somebody is telling you, right? But if someone is saying, even that comment about someone talking about timing, right? Like the woman instructing the leader, the follower instructing the leader, telling him, you're on the wrong time for leading this turn, but she was actually referring to her own time as a follower, right? There's speaking with authority, and I think that's important for us to know when we have authority and when we don't, right? To understand awareness of ourselves and what knowledge we actually possess, what we are an expert in, or what we are very knowledgeable in, and what we might not know something in, right? Because if we're speaking and saying, oh, you're in the wrong time, well, are you sure? Right? Because if you're not, then who the hell do you think you are speaking with that kind of language and authority, right? And so that person who you were dancing with, who started to talk about the timing, maybe could have expressed that a little bit differently as, hey, are we on the right time? Because on my time, I always thought that I'm supposed to turn on this time, right? Now here you get a conversation. There's communication and there's an explanation that will follow. Instead of you feeling like, who does she think she is? She's actually on the wrong time and she's talking about followers timing, but we're in the middle of a dance. I don't have time for this kind of conversation. This is not the time or the place for it, right? So the way somebody presents it will determine how receptive you are to it. And this goes into the acquaintances thing. If somebody says to you, for example, wow, that's really rough, right? Vague. We talked about that specificity, right? It's a little bit too vague to be acted on, but it should be acted on, right? Because here's now safety and comfort that come into play. So if you're receiving feedback, like our receptivity to something like that might not be high because we feel like, wow, you just attacked me, right? You're like, you just put a stamp of roughness on something that I'm doing or inappropriateness on what I'm doing. And I could respond to that in many different ways. So my receptivity to that is variable, right? Because it's someone I don't know, someone I don't even know that they know what they're talking about. And so I might not be as keen on it, right? And I'm going to go into how we receive feedback in a moment, but I'm just talking right now about levels levels of receptivity, right? And the different circumstances that we are either have a higher receptivity or lower receptivity. Same thing with random strangers, right? Generally pretty low. Don't know them, don't know that they care about us, don't have any idea about their experiences or their knowledge, and so might not put that much importance to it. Why you're receiving feedback, solicited versus kind of unsolicited feedback, also affects the receptivity. right? So when you ask for feedback, most likely you're going to be highly receptive to whatever you are hearing because you asked for it, you are looking for it, you're seeking that growth, you're seeking that information. When something is unsolicited on your own state of mind, like if you're feeling joyous and like great, if you get some kind of negative feedback, you might push that out because you don't want to ruin your mood, right? But at the same time, you might hear something and say, oh, you know what? I didn't ask for that, but wow, I never even thought about that. Maybe there's something I could do with that, right? The timing, again, is also important for how receptive someone is, how receptive we are for receiving feedback. Better timing, higher receptivity. Poor timing, lower receptivity. So if somebody is speaking to me, let's say even feedback in communication, right? A level of communication, the way I'm speaking, or the words that I'm saying, or a joke that I'm making, right? If somebody gives me feedback while I am in public, around surrounded by a bunch of people, I might be a little defensive if I hear that. But if someone pulls me aside and says, "Hey, look, Magna, can I just tell you something?" And then say, you've been really loud, right, this entire time. I don't know why you're yelling at that volume, but it's really loud. Like everything about you right now is over the top, right? And it would be really great if you kind of calmed yourself down because we're at a funeral. Okay. Great. Pull me aside. But timing, location, when and where really impacts the receptivity of the person who is receiving that feedback. The content, obviously, what you say, what you say and how you say it, if you are delivering something that is purely negative, like in general, we don't want to surround ourselves with negativity. We are looking for happiness and growth in our life. Yes, there are going to be struggles, but we're not seeking that out. So the more people add just purely negative content or negative words or a negative delivery and tone to whatever it is that they're providing, the harder it becomes for us to receive that. And so generally speaking, purely negative criticism is not going to be received well. And attitude attached to that will make it even less likely that it'll be received well, right? And there are a couple of ways. And let me just read a couple of comments here quickly. Adam, hold to your thing. There's an interesting question. I'll answer this after we go through this topic. When does a person qualify to be an artist? Because now people are attending workshops, boot camps, and boom, they are suddenly artists. Okay, interesting question. We'll touch upon that. But yeah, how we receive feedback, right? This is an internal process. This is entirely up to us, right? There are a couple of different ways. We can disregard something as irrelevant. We could be dismissive of something by saying like, what the hell does that person know? They're just a student, right? I'm a teacher. I'm not going to listen to anything coming from a student about how I should teach. We could be defensive about it, right? Like someone says, hey, you know what, you could really improve this. Or, but what about you? You're always talking like that too. You always say the same things, or you always do this too, right? That defensiveness. We could get something that is bitter and harsh, but has something valuable and actionable in it. So we might not appreciate it, but we tend to accept it and apply it into our lives. That usually comes out in situations where there's conflict or there are problems, especially in friendships and relationships. When you have those difficult conversations where somebody feels hurt and they are hurt by something that you are consistently doing, and they want to provide you with feedback on how to improve the way you communicate. And it probably doesn't come out in a moment of, hey, you know what, we're having a great time. Can I share something with you? No, it's usually, you know what, I am done with this. I'm tired of the way you're doing this. You always do this, blah, 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 right? So it often comes out. So it's not appreciated because of the fact that it's coming, the delivery is harsh, the tone is harsh, the timing might not be great, but the content of it is actionable, and the content of it will contribute to growth, both individually, as a couple, as friends in that relationship, and also beyond, right? And then finally, the best type of feedback is usually the one that is delivered well, right? It's the stuff that we appreciate, that we're really thankful for, that we can apply very easily, and that we accept, and actually that we desire even more of, right? So those are the ways that we receive feedback. And this, as I mentioned, is really up to us. Like, it's our choice how we want to take that in, right? And I'm going to go into this one small metaphor about feedback, which I'd like to say that we'll be wrapping it up from this, and then I'm going to answer that question. And if you guys have any other questions, you can throw that into chat. But feedback is a lot like food. You know, there are tons of different types of food, ranging in taste and healthiness and nutritional value, right? So when we get that healthy, delicious food, that's that beautiful, constructive, actionable, positive, well-timed, well-delivered, well-verbalized feedback, right? When we get that kind of bitter conversation, the tone isn't great, the timing might not be great, but the content is there. There's something that is of value that can help us grow. That's like eating something that's really good for you, but that tastes terrible, right? You know you need to get that nutrition, but it's not that great. It's not that delicious, and swallowing that, even though you know it's good for you, is not a pleasant experience, right? So I would compare it personally, like, really great feedback is like a banana. Tastes good, good for you. That bitter kind of delivery, but also really good for you, would be something like what's it called? What's that? Broccoli rab. You know, it's really, really bitter. I can't stand it, but it's got a lot of antioxidants and nutritional value to it. Then you have this empty praise, right? Which just makes you feel good and tastes great, right? It makes you feel good, tastes great, but really has no nutritional value to it. So this is like ice cream. You know, we love it. It's delicious, and I could eat pints and pints of it, but it'll make me sick, right? And it's the same as like empty praise. Like, it's great to hear everybody saying, "Oh, you're amazing, you're this, like you're fantastic. I loved you. I love you. I love this. I love that," which is all great. It's really positive. It's fantastic, but it doesn't have anything actionable to it, right? It's quite empty in terms of actually providing growth and nutrition to somebody's soul, right? And somebody's personal growth. And so that I would compare to like ice cream. And then finally, there's the stuff that is not only not good for you, but it's also really disgusting. And these are the negative criticisms that we get, that come from a bad place. You know, it's the intention behind even giving that to you is hurt and pain, right? Could be their own hurt and pain. I mean, maybe you've heard the saying of like, hurt people, right? So that person's own personal experience of pain might be coming out in a way that hurts you too, and they don't realize it, or they don't care. And then the words themselves are really negative, and they're not constructive. So it's not like saying, in a yelling at you and saying, you know, "I can't believe that you disrespected me like this, and you were swearing at me in public," right? That's maybe the delivery is because I'm hurt and I'm saying it in a way that I'm yelling at you, but actually what I'm saying is actionable content. But it's different for me to be yelling at you and being like, "You know what, you're a piece of shit. You're a terrible human being," and blah, 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 right? Super negative all along. And so there's foods like that too, I'm sure, right? I don't know what specifically, but I'm sure, I don't know, manure, maybe eating like cow poop probably tastes terrible and might not be really all that great for you either, right? But that's what I look at feedback as, right? Feedback is like food in terms of feedback is essential. It's a fundamental element for our nutrition, for our growth. And there are different types of feedback out there, you know? So what we accept and what we are getting is going to kind of provide a certain level of nutrition to our bodies and our souls and our minds. And we need to be mindful of that, right? So a little visualization here. If you were a parent, when you're giving feedback, like the visualization I would go into is think of yourself as a parent. And I don't care if you are in a student-teacher relationship, friends or boyfriend, girlfriend, or student to teacher, providing a review on content or a comment, on someone's content or review of a service, whatever situation you're in. If you can put yourself in the position of a parent that cares about their child, right? And we go back to this analogy of food. What would you feed your child to encourage their growth, right? Would you just give them ice cream every single day, right? Is that all you would do? Or would you give them something that's healthy, that tastes good, that will help them grow? Or would you also give them the things that don't taste great, but you know that they need that to grow into a better person, right? So if you view that relationship, that moment of giving feedback to somebody as if you were a parent and that is your child that you care about, that you want them to grow into this healthy, strong, caring, beautiful human being, you're going to be mindful of what you feed them, right? And you might take a little bit more attention to make sure you read the contents of that package of food before you just deliver it, right? So those are things that you can approach your giving of feedback from that lens of a parent that cares, so that you are actually delivering something of value that they can use, right? And then another question to ask yourself is, if you are in a relationship, and this is not a random situation like you just happen to pop into a restaurant, you want to review something there, but actual continuous relationships in your life, your friends, your romantic relationships, your family, your coworkers, right? Again, back to that parenting relationship. Would you feed your child once a year, or would you continuously feed them, right? Again, feedback keeps on coming to us all the time. Like, we don't even realize it, right? It's all around us. Someone who says, you're amazing, right? Someone who says, oh, you're always late. That's feedback in its own way. It's not, again, it's either empty praise or unactionable. But if you wanted to read into it, you could probably get something out of it. And if somebody wanted to deliver a little bit more, they could tell you more, right? With my friends, for example, when I say I love you, you know, it's often followed by I love you because, right? And I do try to say that often because these are close relationships of mine. And I know that that feedback is going to improve our relationship, and it's going to improve what I get out of it. It's going to improve them, what they know that they're doing right, what they could improve upon. It's going to improve our relationship together and our relationship with everybody else around us, because we are hearing about the good qualities about us that make us great, that make us a better person, that make us a good partner, a good friend, a good family member, a good teacher, a good student, whatever it is, right? So I am always trying with the close relationships in my life as if a parent to a child. Like, I don't want to feed and starve my relationship of effective, constructive, actionable feedback. I want to make sure that that's always happening, whether that's just positive in terms of saying, I love that you care so much. I love that you always respond on time. I love that you put so much effort into your learning. I love how dedicated you are. Whatever those things are, I will say that, you know? And if there's nothing negative to really say or improve upon, that's fine, because as long as I'm giving that constructive, positive feedback, at least they know what to keep on working on, right? And then let's talk about getting feedback, right, from the receiving side, back to this analogy of food, but also of parent, right? Who you receive feedback from, right? Think about the relationship. Like, would you trust anybody to give you food? And what food would you accept? And how often would you want to eat? You know, for me, I mean, as a human being just growing as a physical human being, I eat regularly. I am not trying to eat once every 2 or 3 weeks. I eat multiple times a day. Why? Because there's nutrition that my body wants and needs, and I'm feeding it that based on my lifestyle and the things that I want to do. So, likewise, when it comes to feedback from the relationships that I have, I want regular feedback. You know, sure, I could still be the person that I am without getting that feedback often, but what do I want to be? I want to be a better person. I want to be a better friend. I want to be a better teacher. I want to be a better speaker, a better provider of services that I give. And so I am seeking feedback all the time, because it improves what I'm able to bring to the table. So, a couple of questions. Da, 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 da. I feel like my connection is a little choppy here, so I apologize. But ultimately, on the feedback thing, before I talk about this, what makes an artist an artist? And if you have any questions, again, please throw it into chat. And I apologize if the connection is a little lagging on StreamYard or on YouTube or on Facebook. I'm seeing like my bars change here. So hopefully everything is running smoothly on that side. But back to feedback. My conclusion on feedback is it's necessary. It is all around us, right? Comes in forms of being solicited and unsolicited, but it is always around us. There are always things that we are hearing that we can actually process and act upon. When you are giving feedback, it is super important to understand why. Why are you giving feedback? Who are you giving feedback to? What is the relationship with that person? Because that will determine the receptivity to the feedback that you are providing. Is the timing of your feedback appropriate? Could there be a better time for it? Could you prep for that? What do you want to say? What are you saying? Is whatever you're saying feedback or just praise or just criticism? Are you actually providing something that's actionable to that person? Again, going back to feedback as food, something that nourishes, something that helps build and grow. Is your feedback actually consistent with that? Can someone say, that was amazing. That's going to help me be better. That's going to help me continue the things that I'm doing right or improve these things that I could make changes upon. And then finally, how are you speaking? How are you delivering your feedback, right? Because just because you have something important to say doesn't mean it's going to be received that way. But if you can find a good delivery method, you increase the chances of having people actually receive what you want to say with the intention that you had initially, And then when it comes to receiving feedback, it's up to us to want to grow and improve. Everyone can give us the most actionable feedback in the most constructive and positive way. But if we don't seek growth, personal growth, you can give me everything and I'm not going to eat it, right? If I don't want to eat, it doesn't matter how much healthy food or even crappy food you put out there. I'm not going to eat anything, right? So we have to want to grow. And so we have to appreciate first the feedback that's around us. And then because feedback is not always presented to us in this positive, constructive way with all the details that we would like, we have to be able to extract the actionable content from it, the things that will actually help us. So if somebody is saying something and they are speaking in a tone that is rude or that is hurtful, that might not be great. And yes, that might push up your defenses, but can you see through your defenses and say, is there any truth to this? And if there is, does it make sense for me and what I want to do? And do I want to change anything or will I change anything? And then through that, you got to be able to weed out that empty praise, right? Because there are a lot of people who, and this might be touching on Adam, what you were saying, right? There are a lot of people who get, wow, you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing. And then they think that whatever they do is amazing, And that's not always the case. It really depends on the specificity of it, right? Same thing goes for negativity. Like people saying, oh, you're not doing the right steps, or with dance, right? Like I've gotten so much criticism in my past and even to present day about like my style of dancing and my approach to this dance, right? And all of that negativity, if I had allowed it to permeate my being, I would not be doing what I do. I would have fallen in line and tried to just copy somebody who is successful doing the traditional conventional style of salsa, right? That's not what I wanted to do. So I am okay with the negativity, right? Which takes me to my fourth point. It's important for us to always stay grounded, but also protected, right? So whatever you're getting from this world, if it's a lot of praise, stay grounded. And if it's a lot of negativity, stay protected, and that is up to you. But in everything that we do, there is something that can be gained. There is something that can be gained, even if it is in the lesson that, you know what, I would not have said it that way, right? Or I would have used different words. Even in that situation with someone who is yelling at you or just being purely negative to you, right? There's something you can still learn. Perhaps the feedback isn't direct. Maybe the words don't have anything to you. Maybe the relationship with that person means nothing to you. But listening to them, you can say, you know what, I would communicate differently. And my feedback to that person would be to have said different words, but let me use that feedback for myself. If I want to be a good communicator, I would not employ this technique or use these words or choose this timing, right? There's always something that we can learn. So it is up to us, right, to extract as much as we can from every single situation and know that in every situation there is something to learn, right? And when we're giving, like this part is really important, is when we are giving feedback, when we're giving anything, when we're putting anything out into this world, be exceptional with what you do, because there is a recipient, and I know, and I'm certain of this with all of you, you just have to change your frame of mind in terms of who you are relating to. Not everyone is important. This is true, right? They don't all have the same level of importance. My best friend is not the same as the random person on the street. But in the moment that you're giving feedback, you need to equate them. Like you need to find a moment and say, not that they're the same, but that you're a parent and they're both your children, right? Hopefully, if you are a parent, you have two different kids. I hope you're not playing favorites to that degree that you feed one and you just kind of like let this person dig through the dirt and find some grass or whatever they can find to eat, right? So when it comes to giving feedback, again, not saying that everybody is at the same level of importance. What I am saying, however, is when you are giving feedback, you are in a position of privilege. You are in a position that should be honored, that should be respected, that should be embraced and really followed through to the highest quality. And that is not because of the other person. That is a reflection of you. That is a reflection of you, your integrity, and how you show up to a situation. So try to have that consistency across the board. If you're providing feedback to a friend, someone really close to you, take the time to find the right words, to make sure the timing is right, and deliver it in the best way possible, right? And if you are being asked to or are unsolicited, delivering feedback to somebody you don't know or you don't know that well, don't disregard the importance of that interaction and that communication, because you could really impact somebody's life for the better. And you could also impact their life for the worse, right? Our words do have impact. So try to be exceptional with what you put out there when you're giving feedback. And if anyone asks you to, and you say yes, especially if you say yes, follow through to the best of your ability. Treat that person as your child for that moment, for that interaction. You are the parent. That person is your child. Feed them something that is going to help them grow into a healthy human being, right? And on that note, I have a feedback form. As I mentioned, my live chat If you go to magnagopal.com, my name, which is everywhere on all these platforms, Facebook, YouTube, etc., Instagram, magnagopal.com/feedback. Okay. Or you can just go to the contact section on the website and there is a form that says feedback form for the live chat. I would really appreciate detailed, actionable, constructive feedback from you. It can be good, it can be bad. I don't mind either way, but why not exercise what you have learned or gained from this moment, from today's live chat, and put that into practice and see how you can actually deliver feedback that can be positive but actionable and meaningful to the person that's receiving it, me, or even negative but still actionable. Okay, magnagopal.com/feedback. These live chats are happening once a month at the moment. They are on Wednesdays at 12 p.m., the first Wednesday of every month at 12 p.m. If they change, of course, you'll be notified via one of these social media platforms that you're on. And if you want any extra coaching on feeling more empowered about your communications, about your relationships, or dance related stuff with regards to better technique, better teaching skills, better learning skills even, or if you just want online classes or tutorials, everything can be found on my site, magnagopal.com. The on-demand section has a whole slew of at your own pace courses, as well as the membership platform, which has a whole bunch of tutorials, including my fitness training. And then if you want the private coaching, you can just contact me from my website and I'll be glad to work with you. From that, let's answer your question really quickly about the mic is being hit. I knew it. I had a feeling. I'm so sorry. Well, we're about to wrap up, but I will still take this off for this last part. I asked earlier. No, but somebody said that everything sounded good. Okay. Well, so what was the question here? Where can I find it? Okay. So yeah, when does a person qualify to be an artist? This might not be the answer you're looking for, so I apologize in advance. I think there are different levels of artists in the industry, just like instructors. And I actually used to have this opinion of new instructors, people that were inexperienced, that maybe just took a few lessons and then now all of a sudden they have classes and they're teaching and they have opening up a school, whatever the case is. I used to feel like, wow, you don't even know what you're doing. Like, who do you think you are teaching classes? And you see their students and the students are not that great. Why? Because they don't have a full repertoire of moves and knowledge and all of that stuff. They're getting the real basic, which is what this person has learned from wherever they've traveled and learned from. And so I used to feel like there wasn't a place for them. But maybe in the past 10 years, I realized there is a place for everybody. Okay. If you are just taking classes and are going out and teaching, first of all, oftentimes when you try to teach whatever it is that you have learned, you become better at it. You get to process it more, right? So maybe I've learned a certain move from an instructor and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go and teach Chines. And now I have 10 people following me, all right? And I'm teaching them this move and nobody's getting it. I am going to realize that I don't know it as well as I thought I did. And so perhaps that might inspire me to break it down better, to understand it better, and then to ultimately teach it better, right? So you can get people who are not that experienced, have a desire to teach and share, and then they become better as a result of the process, right? Through the process and through the practice. Then there are people who really are not interested in developing and learning. They know some basic moves and that's good enough for them. And that's what they're going to go out and teach. And now they have regular classes and they're teaching. Every instructor, every school, every person out there who brings salsa out to the front is bringing new people into the scene. Okay. Again, is the quality of what they're putting out there great? Probably not. Maybe their timing is off. Maybe they don't even understand the terminology. Maybe they're breaking things down completely incorrectly. But those people that are going to that person, who knows how they found them, and maybe there's nobody else in their community or in their city that's teaching, those people that have found this person weren't around before, right? So they found this person. This might be their introduction into a community, which will then expand their interest to learning more, to learning from different instructors, to eventually discerning what is good instruction and what is poor instruction, right? But if not for this shitty instructor, they would have never entered the scene in the first place, right? So now I see that even poor instructors have a place in terms of bringing people in. So yes, artists. I mean, I'm using the term instructors, but even an artist. I mean, that's really a random term, I guess. Everyone's an artist of life, perhaps, as Bruce Lee would say, at least. So, um, what I would say is focus on you, focus on what you're doing. There are probably people out there that look at you with all of your experience and years of practice and your own travels and say, so what? That doesn't make you anything, right? How would you defend yourself against that, being an artist, right? For me, I mean, I'm in dance, I'm in salsa specifically for over 20 years. And there's still people who are like, yeah, she doesn't, she's not conventional. She doesn't know the traditions. She doesn't stick with the traditions. And so, in my eyes, she is not a salsa dance instructor, right? So, there are many ways that we can judge people and say that they are or they are not something, right? And that criteria with which we're judging them, if they judged us by the same criteria, sure, maybe we would qualify. But if they judged us from a different criteria, maybe we wouldn't. Now, who's who, right? Who has the right to be here? And ultimately, I think we all have a right to be here because we're here, right? So, however you're showing up, you're showing up. If you don't have a lot of experience, that's fine, right? Hopefully, you have a desire, again, to grow, take feedback from people, learn, master your craft, and improve what you're putting out there. And if you don't have that desire, you're still an attraction to people to enter, right? Maybe you absolutely completely suck, but now that you got hooked on this dance, you're like getting your friends, yo, let's come over to my house, let's practice this dance. I just learned these new steps, right? You don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're teaching, but those people aren't that interested in going to a dance class. So are they even really your clients? Are they even possible students for you as a person who runs a school? Maybe not, probably not, right? But if those people now enter and they're now practicing with this random person, right, who doesn't know anything, but they're practicing, they're like, wow, this is so much fun. Where did you learn this? Oh, yeah, I went to this class. Oh, cool. I'm going to go check them out, right? So there is a place for everybody, in my opinion. There's a place for everybody. So generally speaking, focus on you. Try not to hurt other people in the process. If you see something that's wrong, right? If it's hurtful, if it's inappropriate, by all means, find a way to communicate that and try and do something about it. Ideally, deal with the person directly. Don't blast on social media. It's petty, you know? And most of the posts that I have seen in the past of people saying all sorts of critical things about somebody else on social media, those posts are not even around anymore. You can't even find them. Why? Because you couldn't even stand by it. You felt something, you were emotionally enraged by some actions or behaviors or words, and you went out there and you said something, and then you changed your mind eventually, right? So be mindful. Again, be exceptional with what you put out there. And if there's something you want to communicate to somebody who's an instructor, an artist, whatever, and it's because what they're doing is wrong, like hurtful, could cause harm, physical harm, or is inappropriate in some other way, by all means, again, go and speak to them. But if what they're doing is just something that's a matter of skill that you don't think is great and you don't think qualifies, I would say look at those things that they're doing incorrectly, that the technique is not there, and you work on yourself in those same areas and provide something better. And that would be my 2 cents on that. I don't know if that answered your question the way you wanted it answered, but I hope it provides a little bit of enforcement and guidance. This guy. All right. With that, I would like to say thank you very much again for joining me this month for this live chat on feedback, the importance of feedback. Again, if you have the time, please go check out magnagopal.com/feedback to complete the form. If you're on Instagram, same thing. And I will see you all next month. And if you have any topics, if there's something that you want to cover, if there's other questions that you want to ask, the feedback form is the place to put it. There is a section in there. If you have any other questions or any other topics, you can add them there, and I will be glad to look through them and answer them in a future live chat as well. Okay. Wade said 100% on it. You learn in the field, playing the games you choose, teaching by teaching, and to social dance by dancing out there. Yep. James said awesome chat. Thank you. Adam said it did. Fantastic. And if you are commenting in the chat, please take a minute. It does not take that long to go to the feedback form and complete it. magnagopal.com/feedback, or just go to magnagopal.com, go to the contact section. You'll see the form there, or send me a message, DM me, and I will send you a link to the feedback form itself. Okay. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week and a lovely weekend. And just remember, if you are someone who is about to say something to help somebody else, like, be mindful of your words, be mindful of the timing, be mindful of how you are saying what you're saying, and be aware of your biases, your personal biases, and your own selfish desires, and be aware of the relationship that you have with that person. The greater awareness you can bring to the situation, the more likely someone is going to receive whatever it is that you are saying well, and they will act upon it. And you benefit as a result, because that person grows into a better person. And now that person who is a better person is in your life, contributing to your life in better ways. And same thing if you are receiving feedback. I know not everything that we hear that we need to hear sounds good, right? Most of the things we need to hear do not show up in ways that are packaged in a beautiful gift and a ribbon and a bow, right? Most of the things that we need to hear are often delivered in a harsh way, not because the person intends to, but because they are hurt, right? Because they are struggling with something that they don't like, and they don't have the emotional regulation to take the time and phrase it and frame it in a way that we can accept it. So it just comes out. But there's something to be learned in all of that. So wherever you can, extract that information out of the relationships that you have and the conversations that you have. And also, as in Adam, your case, whatever you observe, right? Not everything requires that communication about what is being done and how could it be done better. Sometimes it's just about observation and saying, you know what? I don't have a relationship with this person to tell them anything, but I am going to observe what they're doing, and I'm going to do things the same, better, differently. Cool? And with that, I will bid you all adieu. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. Have a lovely day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sticking around. And if these live chats are too long, you're still here. These live chats are too long. There are much shorter clips and sections, and previous live chats are timestamped on YouTube, so you can actually forward through them to whatever parts you want. Okay? Have a great day, everybody. Bye, Instagrams. Bye, Facebook. Bye, YouTube. Bye, other Facebook.